Yeah, so I watched the new Snow White. I don't. I understand everybody's hate for it. It's not good, but I think what I've taken away from my experience watching the film is that at the end of the day, it's not meant for me. Even though it is part of my childhood, I do understand that there's a level where I have to stop and say, you know what? They made it because they wanted to appeal to another generation. And how do you do that? You just remake an older movie, which is what they've been doing for the last like 15 years. And some of them have been hit or misses. And as a Disney kid, this wasn't a favorite of mine, and it wasn't one that I connected with, but I watched it because I do like seeing what these new interpretations are. Because I feel like new interpretations could bring something else to the table. And I sort of saw what they were going for in a way, but I'm not here for it. That's the thing. Like, it's not, I don't like it. And I do get why I don't like it, and I don't like it because it's not meant for me. It's not meant for me as an audience member, even though I'm at the age now where I'm paying the money to see these films. Back in the day, I wasn't, so there was a certain level of that was different. Like, I watch the new Aladdin, and I find a different appreciation for the new Aladdin because that's something that I revered as a younger child back in the 90s. And Snow White was just not one of those films from the original Disney era that really stuck out to me. And a lot of them do. I was big on Robin Hood. I was big Sword in the Stone. Sword in the Stone is my movie to the day I die. If there's ever a Disney movie I could watch over and over again, it's Sword in the Stone. Which, by the way, they should really just call it Merlin and the kid who pulled the sword out of the stone, because really the main focus of that whole movie is Merlin. He's the best character in the entire film. So I have a different connection with other Disney movies than a lot of the bigger ones. Because a lot of the bigger ones that they've been redoing are all from the Disney Renaissance. It's Lion King, it's Aladdin, it's Beauty and the Beast. It's all of those films that kind of brought Disney back from sort of the depths of failure. And they're just redoing them to try to recapture the nostalgia of it. But they're falling so short because they're missing the magic. I get why everybody hates it. I gotta say, I don't like it for the film, but I try to also be unbiased when it comes to talking about films and television or anything like that. But it's hard for me to not say too many negative things, because most of my negative things regard my feelings towards Rachel Zegler as an actress and a person of influence. I do not. I had recorded three separate times a real full-fledged video of me talking about things that are wrong with Rachel Zegler. I've nicked them all because I felt like I really wasn't able to remain unbiased in those discussions, and I really try my hardest to be a neutral ground person. If I really hate something, it's got to be something that's really worth hating. And when I was talking about things that had to do with Rachel Zegler, it just got way too negative, and I really didn't want it to be that, because there are some positives to her. She's a one-of-a-kind voice. She's had a one-of-a-kind opportunity. Like, how many people do you know just out of the blue were chosen by Steven Spielberg to be the main role of one of the probably biggest movie remakes of a musical ever? Like, West Side Story is a fantastic play. It's a fantastic movie from, what is it, the 60s, the original? I think it's the early 60s. I might be wrong about that, but that's a fantastic film. And to play Maria in that, just by the luck of being a Twitter audition, that's a one in a million opportunity. But I feel like she's squandering it because she's too headstrong. There's something about the way she presents herself that I just don't like. And people think it's just hate because it's racism, which a lot of it is. I'm not going to deny. I see the racism, and I don't get that. My actual gripes with her have nothing to do with racism. My gripes with her have to do with her as a person, and it has to do with a lot of the lying and a lot of the narcissism she shows. And people who try to downplay that by saying it's all racism, you are not doing a service to her as a person. Nobody can hide behind racism being a bad person in their heart. And there's something about her that just, there's an arrogance to a lot of the things I've seen of her. A lot of the interviews, a lot of the online videos, they make compilations about them all over the place. Her, and I'm not even talking about the political stuff either. There's a lot of people that don't like her for the political stuff. Put all of the people who have racist comments aside, because nobody takes those seriously. Put all of the political stuff aside, because we're not talking about politics. We're talking about her as a person, regardless of political views. She has a narcissistic personality that nobody wants to point out, and if you do, they just try to lump it into those two groups. Who sits there and thinks they are that much of the shit that no matter what they do, people are going to come see them because she has that big of a following? She doesn't have that big of a catalog to have that kind of arrogance. And when you wrap that up inside a huge movie like this, which she got behind and totally derailed the conversation of the film by throwing in her views of, and even the views that what she was saying about the film were always changing too. So you have this PR campaign that totally ruins people's perspective and already sets it up for failure by people who hated it just for the fact that you were getting hired and you didn't even look like Snow White to a lot of people. And I'm gonna tell you the truth, she does. She looks a little bit like Snow White. I'm not gonna lie. When you put them side by side, they made her look pretty good. I get the whole thing that she doesn't have pale white skin. I don't know the exact lore, but I think people have to also step back for a second. And now again, this is my unbiased personality coming out. You have to step back and you have to realize that a lot of the Disney movies are based on some kind of lore and some kind of mythology. They're very dumbed down. They are changed from those myths and those folklores because they can't do 100% of what those stories are because they're not kid-friendly. I'm sure everybody's heard of the Cinderella story and how in the real story, it's completely bizarre because it's totally outside of the realm of the movie we got, one of the original Disney movies from the classic era. So nobody has ever done that film. Nobody's ever done that story 100% how it is written in its original folklore. I don't know much about the Snow White folklore. What I do know is that apparently this is a different iteration of how the tale is told, where Snow White doesn't come from her pale white skin. It does actually come from the fact that she was born during a really bad storm. But I also get why people have a disconnect to that, because everybody's been grown to believe that Snow White is called Snow White because of her pale white skin, which is also a version of the lore. So they just took a different route, I guess, in order to get away with the idea that she doesn't have pale white skin. And now if we were to get off of her for a second, because, she doesn't do, as horrible of a job that a lot of people say. It's not the greatest performance. It's not going to win any Oscars, but it's going to make it really painful for me to say she does do a lot better than Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot is really, really stiff in this film. She is really not holding her own in this film. And I'm a Gal Gadot fan. I've been a Gal Gadot fan for a few years now. I'm going to say it's because of Zack Snyder and her being Wonder Woman, because I actually did like her as Wonder Woman. I thought she was really good in those movies. But I guess it's because they don't have the kind of, or maybe her as an actress doesn't have the kind of acting chops to pull off what the evil queen should have been. And then what she did in Wonder Woman was kind of not as crazy. You didn't need that much to be Wonder Woman, I guess you could say. And she was able to pull it off. And she just couldn't do it in my eyes. And that's just from, again, a lot of PR stuff, a lot of political stuff. I'm not getting into that because I don't want that stuff to be on my channel. What I want to talk about is I just want to talk about her and what her abilities were in this film. And I didn't think they were up to par. Now, was Rachel Zegler any better? Maybe, but maybe it's like a very much like a 60-40, 55-45, something kind of like that. It wasn't really like either one of them was doing a tremendous job. And that's just from the two main actresses. Let's not even get into how bad some of the CGI looks and how bad some of the dwarves look. But I do also get why they don't call them dwarves and stuff like that. Again, it's all this political correctness stuff that is nonsense to me. And I kept seeing various things from everybody. Like, you had somebody like Peter Dinklage who was like, oh, they just, we're going to keep calling them dwarves, and that's kind of, not really right towards my people. And then you got somebody like Wee Man, and he's saying, like, why didn't you just hire dwarves? Like, they're called dwarves. Like, you have all these actors out there. Like, it was very much divided, and I'm also divided, because they don't look bad if you're a kid watching it. But it looks bad if you know there's a certain quality that it could have hit that they did not hit with that. And one thing about a lot of the CGI and a lot of the special effects that people were really getting on was how muddy it looks. Again, unbiased. Don't come at me in the comments, but that's on purpose. Like, I hope people realize after seeing it that that's on purpose. Like, it's muddy because it's meant to show that the color and the life kind of fades from the kingdom when she takes over and kind of sucks the joy out of all of their lives. So that's how they kind of portray that with the background kind of visuals. So I understood that, and I understood why that muddiness had to be there. But again, things are supposed to be vibrant, and things are supposed to be... They're vibrant when she gets into the forest, but that also looks all CGI. So it's like, how much of this was actually real? Like, how much of this stuff wasn't really modified? And it just begs the question that I think a lot of people start asking themselves after a while is, what's live action about this? You know what I mean? Like, I'm very much on board with the idea that this is meant to be live action, but almost none of it feels live action. And then you have the sort of okay music that backs it all up. I don't know. Again, it's just hard because I understand it's not for me. I understand at the end of the day, I'm not the targeted audience. I'm a middle-aged white dude who sits on YouTube and talks about movies because he just loves talking about movies, and he loves giving movies a shot because he thinks that there's something in good quality about all movies. And the only good quality I find in this film is that it's not meant for me. It's meant for my sons. It's meant for your sons and your daughters. It's meant to be this generation's version of all the movies that we grew up with, because God forbid we take them back and show them those things, because a lot of the times they're just so old and outdated that we see the quality in it, but our kids don't. You know what I mean? Like, they don't see that you watch the original Aladdin and the way that animation isn't the way that they do animation in Yo Gabba Gabba or Blue's Clues. Like, the animation is completely different, so you run the risk of there being a disconnect unless you really build up that this is something important. It's part of history. Like, I remember... there was an episode of the Joe Rogan podcast where he was talking about how he showed his children the original King Kong from the 1930s, I believe. And he was showing them that, like, look, kids, like, this is what scared people. Like, this was really scary, and these were, like, the top-notch effects that you could do for a film. And that's what we're all doing now. We're all just showing kids 30, 40-year-old films and going, this is where the art was. This was the art form. It was making films look like this, and it took hours and months and years to get these films made. And now it's done in a third of that time because it's all computer generated. So you get these computer generated films that are getting pushed out because they can do it. And you throw away all of that art, but is that art still appreciated? It's kind of one of the biggest questions that comes out of a film like this. Like, does this need to happen because you then can now do this story for a new generation that might have an appreciation for it? Because, God forbid, they look at a cartoon from 1935 and think, this is really crappy, why am I watching this? And that's the unfortunate truth that I don't think a lot of people are really talking about, is that that's a reality. It's a reality to sit there and try to get your kid interested in something that isn't up to par with what cartoons or animation is nowadays. Like, Pixar is the default for this generation. Our generation, the default was cartoon. The default was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The default was Batman. There was also this animated renaissance in the 80s and the 90s where just anything that was cartoon was coming out, and it was tremendous. And now it's all Pixar. You have to be up to the level of Shrek. You have to be Minions. You have to be Toy Story. And if you're not, you might not get your kids to really enjoy it. So as much as you want to make your kid watch the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, you might, but you got to be prepared for them to like this Snow White better. I mean, that's what I took away from this at the end of the day. But I'm on the same boat as everybody else. This was not it. And as a Disney fan, I can acknowledge that, and I can definitely say that this is probably one of the worst ones they've done. And I usually like the remakes because I like the re-envisionment of these stories and these films. This just wasn't it for me.